After a 3-day retreat in Kigali, Rwanda for the Nigeria Governors Forum NGF facilitated by the United Nations Development Programme UNDP, Nigerian governors said effective leadership was in high demand in Africa. They acknowledged that Nigeria was battling a huge trust deficit, saying there is need for dialogue to find a lasting solution to the problem. The governors also said they were ready to understudy Rwanda's post-war development programs as a critical takeaway. Kaduna State Governor Uba Sani, a first-timer who spoke on the imperatives of the program, noted that Rwandan President Paul Kagame's tips on how to manage diversity in an increasingly complex and fractious world were useful. Similarly, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, a second-term governor, said discussions at the retreat had equipped them with adaptive leadership and development strategies. The communique from the retreat, signed by NGF Director of Media Abdul Razak Bello Bakindo, Christabel Chanda Ginsberg and Michelle Mendy Muita, both of UNDP, identified Nigeria's challenges as a complex web. All right, the governors went to Kigali on a 3-day retreat sponsored by the United Nations Development Programme.
Yes, I saw the story overnight and I'm looking at it. 3 days retreat. The first thing that crossed my mind is Rwanda. Absolutely. Kigali, excellent location for an event of that nature. So they've done well, and with the support of UNDP, excellent. So round of applause for that, for keeping it within Africa as well. They've not been taken to the United States or taken to Germany or other parts of the world, but keeping it within Africa is an excellent location, and that is commendable. One of the things that I will definitely want to talk about on this particular matter is the fact that our governors know what our problems are. Our governors also know what the solutions are. But the failure of governance to create policy, or when there are policies, to fail to implement those policies to guarantee that the problems are resolved, is just where we sit today. So it is good that they've gone to a place where things work and they work properly, and they're able to see it at work. And I'm hoping that the lesson is clearly learned, because I don't think it's a lesson they didn't know before, they've never learned before, but they're relearning it. And it's part of what makes you a good leader, being able to relearn, unlearn, and learn as many times as possible. So I will say very clearly that it is important that Governor Uba Sani, who knows what the situation is in his constituency, which is Kaduna State. He knows the story of the southern Kaduna, and he has gone to Kigali and he has seen what diversity can create in terms of problems, and being able to work together can now create a better society. It is important for him to have learned that lesson and make sure that he comes back and begin to look after the people of southern Kaduna, so that whatever has happened in the past will become a story to be confined to the past. The people of southern Kaduna have to be taken care of. They have to feel like they're part of that society in Kaduna State. The other governors who are talking about all the things they learned are like innovation. There's nothing wrong with any city. Lagos, for example, should be as good as Kigali. It should be the center of attraction for the entire continent. Everybody on the continent should be coming to Lagos to have conferences like they're going to Kigali. Businesses in the United States, in the UK, in other parts of the world, they're going to Kigali for conference. Just like many years ago, South Africa, Joburg and Cape Town used to be the center of attraction for so many businesses. But now, Kigali is the place that everybody wants to go to. And that's why UNDP is taking them there. So it's important that everybody in Nigeria today, every governor, to begin to think of creating situations and environment within their state that makes it such that everyone wants to come to their state for conferences, for events, for any kind of thing that they want to do, and to bring business as well, because foreign direct investment will not come to federal government. It will come to a specific location because of the attraction there.
Excellent, thanks.
Okay, all right. Between 1990 and 1994, things had finally come to a melting point in Rwanda. And it was just an event that crystallized everything. The shooting down of the plane of the president. And Rwanda never remained the same. It became a killing field between the Hutus and the Tutsis. Media was used to spread hate. And the country was, goodness me, a killing ground. Intamawe forces came in, as against also the initial forces in Rwanda. And the country was as good as dead and buried between 1994 to 96. But like a phoenix, they rose from the ashes. And that's the story of Rwanda today. At that point in time, Nigeria was doing well. Just like I also segued with the Singaporean story, where Lee Kuan Yew did come to Nigeria. And he saw the way our leaders were behaving, and he said, we're never going to go far with the way they were behaving. Many years down the line, it's not that Rwanda has it all. It's not still the biggest of economies. It's not even big compared to Nigeria as an economy. But Paul Kagame has brought in some seeming level of accepting responsibility. Congrats to the UNDP for putting this together. The crux of the matter, and I also going to segue this into Tony Oluwelu's speech yesterday at Nigerian Bar Conference in Abuja, where he talked about the need for infrastructure, national development, national cohesiveness, growth, innovation, and all of that. The crux of the matter is the reason why a nation moves forward is because the leaders accept responsibility. The reason why Nigeria is failing is because our leadership cannot accept responsibility. Darren Acemoglu wrote a book. He said, why nations fail? The answer is pure and simple. Nations fail because their leaders make them fail. What fixes a nation? Acceptance of responsibility. No matter how many retreats you go, like you go from here to Kutuwenji for retreats, if you don't learn to accept basic responsibility, you will never grow. And what are those responsibilities? I said about the UNDP. Developmental prospects. Nutrition prospecting. Most of the states are still below nutritional threshold. I've had dealings constantly with UNICEF and the likes. I've had dealings constantly with UNICEF and the likes, and they say, oh, the developmental threshold, they don't get it. Average nutrition of children is low. But at the same time, they can't understand why average nutrition of children is low and the governors in these states are driving very expensive cars and using state funds for all sorts. Innovation, building society. What did Rwanda do? Rwanda opened up its economy. Rwanda invested in its schools that at a point, private schools were not thriving any longer in Rwanda. The last person that really worked on the school system a lot here, that people can appreciably see, the like of the Latif Jakonde. Rwanda decided to close the gap of division. What do we have here? We have leaders that divide people even further. Look at the last elections. So when we go to Rwanda, can we do what Paul Kagame has done? He accepted responsibility. He got to the point that if you meet an average Rwandese, they will not tell you I'm Hutu or Tutsi. They say I'm Rwandese. Southern Kaduna or whatever division, they don't see it. Rwanda had reminders where we like to forget the disastrous effect of things. Like everybody saying, oh, forget about NSAS happened. But Rwanda has a remembrance memorial. When you go in there, you see the heads that were shattered, the people that were macheted. So this to remind you of the effect of violence and division. I'm not saying Rwanda is perfect. Paul Kagame has his own problems too. He has suppressed opposition. He has done all sorts. But at least he has done a whole lot better. And I'm not coming here to praise Paul Kagame as entirely the best of standards. But he decided to take responsibility. Cleaned up his country. And started to move it on the path. He was innovative. Started to use what he had to be able to build his country. I think my charge to the governors and our leaders is the fact that we must take responsibility for our actions. That's the difference between Rwanda and us. Rwanda embraced a lot of e-learning in the educational system. Today, Paul Kagame is a darling of everybody because he shaked up things. This was the same Paul Kagame that was a rebel at a point, carried guns, led, killed, fought. But he knows the implication of never going back to that fighting. I hope we learn.
All right. With a population of 13.46 million, Rwanda is not even, the population of Rwanda is not close to the population of Lagos State alone. Yet we have seen a record achievement in the past few years, especially under President Paul Kagame. So it's quite instructive that the destination of choice for the Governors Forum or the new governors was Rwanda, especially Kigali. And not just from the facilitation of the UNDP, but beyond that, it's being able to actively see and feel what has gone on in Rwanda to make it, as has been mentioned, the destination of choice for investors on the African continent. As part of the, this three-day training, which was facilitated by the UNDP, the governors had an opportunity to also visit the Innovation Hub in Rwanda. And it's also instructive to mention that the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, has also opened an innovation hub here in Lagos State, in Ikoyi, the first in Nigeria. And it's an opportunity to realize that if we must change as a nation, if we must develop as a nation, innovation is key. We must have an enabling environment where young people and older people have an opportunity to innovate, to think outside the box. The theme of this particular training was reimagining leadership in a fast-changing world. And the governors had an opportunity to talk about issues around digital technology, urban planning, diversity, looked at socioeconomic transformation, and they had a private dialogue with President Kagame. In fact, in one of those dialogues, it's reported that the Kaduna State Governor, Governor Ubasani, had an opportunity to speak about Kaduna being a destination for investors. Don't forget that in the last administration, one of the key wins of the former governor, El Rufai, was the Kaduna Investment Summit, where he demonstrated his interest and his commitment to attracting investors to the state of Kaduna State, to Kaduna. Anambra State as well, and we saw Governor Soludo, Charles Soludo in that footage, is also hosting an investment summit, I believe next month, in September. And so it's important for states, and it was good, I think about 19 governors were there. The invitation was on the behest of President Kagame and was facilitated by the UN. But it's key to see that not all the governors of the 36 states in Nigeria attended, but as many as possible did. And I'm hoping that those who didn't attend for various reasons would read the communique and hopefully have an opportunity to themselves visit Rwanda, visit Kigali, and have conversations. It's not just about the training. When Vice President Shetima went to the BRICS summit, when he came back, Reuters had a very interesting caption, "Daddy, what did you bring for us?" So when governors and state officials travel in capacities like this, what we're expecting beyond the rhetorics is to see tangible conversations had and hopeful investment opportunities for their states. And so I'm hoping that with the conversations they've had, with the exposure in terms of the people that they met in Kigali, the governors will begin to think outside the box, reimagining leadership, begin to understand that leadership is not business as usual. We've spoken about the fact that if a country or a state will prosper, leadership is a key factor. Hence, it is important to have our leaders exposed to realities like this, to environments like Kigali, so that they can see and hopefully have the willpower. It's not enough to go on trainings, it's to have the will, the political and perhaps in some cases personal will to make a change in their individual states. So what we're looking for as an outcome, beyond what has been done, is that we begin to see plans effected in the individual states that were represented and those who have an opportunity to find out what happened in Kigali. We want to see changes in digital innovation in the states. Let's stop focusing on Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja alone. Let's stop focusing on Kano and Kaduna alone. We have other states with potential which hasn't yet been maximized. Let us leverage the opportunities with partners, international partners like the UN, to find out how to lead the people in a way that is deserving of the votes that were gotten during the election. One of the things that we saw during the campaign season were leaders who were passionate about, vote. They somersaulted in some places. There were dances here, new slogans here and there. There was such a passion to get the people to vote for them with many campaign promises. Now is the time to execute and reward the people for their votes, not just about putting up signboards and putting up, what are those things? The billboards. Billboards, and saying thank you for your votes. That's not going to cut it. The best way to thank the people for their votes is to work for them, is to serve them, is to be excellent in leadership. Very simple. That's what the people want. So kudos again to the Rwandan government and, of course, the UNDP. And very much, I must say, kudos to the governors themselves who made themselves available to attend. We look forward to seeing the impact of what has transpired in the past 3 days in the next few weeks, months, and years in their respective states. Move on to our next story. The government of Cameroon has notified the federal government of its plan to open the Lagdo Dam so as to reduce the level of water caused by the persistent rain in Cameroon. The notification was sent to the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, through a letter signed by Umar Salisu, the ministry's Director of African Affairs in Cameroon. The alert issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on August 21 said the Cameroonian government plans to open the floodgates of the Lagdo Dam on the Benue River in days ahead. According to NEMA, excess water released in Cameroon from the Lagdo Dam caused heavy flooding in 13 states in 2022. Kay, your take on this? I'm sure when you see a headline like this, there's a bit of shivering and, oh my goodness, not again. Do you think we're better prepared this time?
Well, this is a case of sweet and sour for me. Sweet that the notification, the alert, is going out now. It is always good when you hear that there's an alert, that there's going to be a problem, because people need to be aware and they need to prepare for it. So that is sweet. But the sour part of it is, I am not sure that we have made the adequate preparation for all that is required to make us ready for when Lagdo Dam is opened by the Cameroonian authorities. And I will definitely want to say commendation to Lagos State Government. Mr. Oson Etolu, who is in charge of the emergency services, he said that they're prepared. The 144 units of facilities are prepared to accommodate 5,000 IDPs. That is good, but is 5,000 enough when this kind of problem, if it affects a place like Lekki, for example, I'm not sure how far that water will come from Cameroon, but if it affects a place like Lekki alone, 5,000 facility for IDP is definitely not going to cut it. It's not going to be enough. We can say kudos to Lagos State Government because they're saying that they're clearing canals and they're clearing facilities and they're creating environmental guards within local authorities in Lagos. The governor is pushing, and the emergency services in Lagos, they are pushing to make sure that they prepare. But is that preparation going deep enough? Is there enough investment going into it? And is the publicity that is required enough notice given to the people to let them know? And some of them, because it's not enough for you to just say to Nigerians who live in Lekki Axis, for example, around Jakonde area and other areas that are prone to flood. It's not enough to tell them, move to the upper part of the land where there is not going to be. Move to where? Who is providing the accommodation for them? Who is moving them into a place where they will not have to go through the flooding? Yes, all of that are not being done, and there is a need. So I'm calling on Governor Sanwo-Olu that put in more investment to make sure that the good work you have started in terms of making sure there is an early warning and that there is money being put into preparation for IDPs, there's got to be more. 5,000 won't cut it. They need to do a lot more than that. Let's talk about Benue, which is another state that is likely to be affected by this situation. The governor of Benue State, Governor Ali, he said yes, that they are making preparation, But talk is cheap, Mr. Governor. Talk is very cheap. You have to do more than just make preparation. Make sure that you're dredging all the canals around your area in the state and making sure that you put in money to support the people. Then talk about Delta State. Delta State says they're also trying, but it's not enough to just try. There's got to be a case of you have got enough notice on this particular matter, so there should not be one single person. And we wouldn't know until the day it happens to see how well you have prepared for this. So that preparation has got to be really intense. It's got to be profound. It's got to be thought through. And there's got to be cash backing it to make sure that we don't have any one person losing their home or losing their property or losing their livelihood as a result of it. Finally, on this particular matter, my call will be to the federal government of Nigeria. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you have to support NEMA to make sure that whatever happens, there is enough fund to ensure the dredging of River Niger and River Benue. Not any single state governor can do that because the newer act means that it says that the federal government only will be the one with the right to dredge River Niger and to dredge River Benue. So for the sake of human lives and property, for the sake of Nigerians that you have taken the oath to protect, for their sake, please, Mr. President, make sure the dredging is done and it is done on time and consistently checked before this Lagda Dam is open.
Thank you. Rufai.
So, like I was saying before, like we go for retreat from here to Kutuwenji, if we don't take responsibility, our problem remains the same. The fact that we're talking about this Lado Dam debacle is an indication of the lack of seriousness on the part of government. And it's not only this government, other governments in Nigeria. Other government dating back to 1982, when Cameroon finished this Lado Dam close to Garoua. And the plan then was, we have to build our own dam here, so that when they release, we have a reservoir. The reservoir was supposed to aid us. We could have produced electricity from there. But you can see how the failing of government destroys the country. We could have added more megawatts of electricity. We could have gotten close to 20,000 tons of fish if we have built it. We could have had more than enough water for irrigation. But we missed all these opportunities because till date, we have not built a dam. So what happens every year? When they open, we get flooded here, we lose livelihood, we lose everything. We impoverish people that are poor already. And what happens? Like our former minister came out to say, they will come and justify now that, Bayelsa State was not as affected as other states with the flood. So why is Bayelsa State complaining too much? Then they claim they released humanitarian palliative for the people. Then people do not get anything. Then between Benue and Kogi is cut off from Abuja, that we can't take fuel into Abuja. Then we continue the cycle of our madness in this country. That's what we do. So we know the solution to this Lado Dam debacle, which is me building another dam here. But since 1982, they've not been able to solve the problem. So you can now see why I say it's not by going to retreat. We can go to retreat from here to Kutuwenji. But nothing will happen except we take responsibility. The question is, when are we going to take responsibilities? In 2012, there was a newspaper article that the government official did say that they were calling on the government to build a dam. It's now over 11 years. Nothing has been built. So we keep impoverishing the lives of people. And do you know how debilitating it is for people to live in IDP camps? As when Mr. K was saying, a state of IDP, it's a sorry state.
Very.
I remember going to one in Ugeli many years ago, when Shell went to make a donation. Here, Mr. Mutiu Sumonu was still the chief of Shell in Nigeria.
Yeah, country director then.
They went to make a donation there. That was the first-hand experience of the pain and the penury a lot of people were going through. And guess what? People were still racketeering in those camps. So do we want to take our people through all of this pain again because we can't build a dam? But yet we are losing money to crude oil theft. Billions are being stolen. every day in this country. All sorts is going on. But we can't just build a dam that will also benefit us economically. We are talking about blue economy. Do you know this dam will add to our blue economy revenue? Because you have more fish, you have more water for irrigation, you can even produce power. Because blue economy even correlates with power. Is it not from waters and dam you get to be able to power your power plants? So when we don't have a thinking nation, we have a retrogressive nation. When we have a thinking nation, we have a forward-looking nation. The Japanese man will say, "Yoi shina, yoi kangai." Good thinking, good products. And like I always say, if your yo is not shinai, it can't be kangaing. If you don't think well, you can't get good products out. The solution to Lado Dam issue had been known since 1982. When are we going to build the dam? In last year's budget now, as we're going, they put a provision for rehabilitation for people that suffered the effect of the dam. Nothing to show for it. So please, 1, build a dam. 2, create buffers. 3, let our social planning, our city planning be better. And 4, look at also the channelization of our waterways. Pure and simple, we do well. We have the capacity to. Nigeria is a blessed nation.
Indeed.
Yeah, we have the capacity to do this. And as you can see on screen, you can see the letter from the Cameroonian official. Now, this letter and alerts that Cameroon gives to Nigeria before it opens its dam is following a memorandum of understanding between the two countries after the devastating effects of the 2012 flooding following the opening of the dams, after which Cameroon and Nigeria entered into an agreement that before they open a dam, they would issue an early warning to enable Nigeria put proactive measures in place to prevent the destruction of lives and properties. Every year, Cameroon commits to their own bargain of the MOU. However, we have seen by evidence, as we saw even last year, that the Nigerian government is inadequately prepared despite the warning that is given. So just to mention that it has to happen because Cameroon has to offload its own excess water in order to manage its excess rainfall. However, when they issue this warning, the benefit of that to Nigeria is that we ought to be able to avoid a repeat of what happened in 2012, which was about 11 years ago. Last year, we saw a devastating effect of the opening of the dams, and we saw a number of states affected. Millions or perhaps billions of naira lost in terms of property and lives, which are invaluable as well, lost. We bemoan that fact. However, here we are again in 2023. This early announcement has been issued again. And like I asked Kay earlier, are we better prepared than we are last year? Before I has already talked about a key area, which we had said after the 2012 devastation, Nigeria would do, which was to build the Dasin Hausa Dam in Fufore local government area of Adamawa State. Since then, despite Nigeria's commitment, which is supposed to be about 2 times or 3 times the size of the Lagdo Dam, hence, no reason at all for us to experience a flood when Cameroon opens its dam. I want you to understand the extent of what leadership and a lack of action will do for the people. So for everyone who lost lives and property last year during the flood, it means that it was an avoidable disaster. Unfortunately, what often happens is that we are often reactionary. The things happen, the government releases statements, we put in a few measures, we rely on international partners to come to our aid, build IDP camps, give people pittances in terms of food and water, and we make headlines out of it. The following year, the same thing happens again because leaders fail to do the right thing. Why hasn't this dam been built since 2012, despite Nigeria's commitment to doing this? We have money to expand the list of ministers in Nigeria. We have 70 billion naira to renovate the National Assembly for hundreds of lawmakers. Yet, we have thousands of people's lives displaced because we do not commit to building this dam. Yes, it is capital intensive. However, as already been illustrated, the benefits of it is enough, if well positioned, to attract investment, because there should be a return on investment in building of the dam. It's not just going to protect the people, it's going to also be an opportunity for revenue. So the brand new Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation has his work cut out for him. That's Professor Joseph Yusuf, a man whom we had spoken about quite highly in terms of his experience in order to manage the situation, in addition to, of course, NEMA and the other ministries who are involved in this. Well, here, unfortunately, we cannot build a dam in the next few weeks or months. So we have to now find ways to again react to this news. I hope and I pray that the subnationals will put in place measures to ensure that the impact is as minimal as possible, because there will be impact, unfortunately, but hopefully it will be as minimal as possible.